Welcome, sports fans. I'm Craig Cortello.
And I'm Kyle Cortello.
And we are the Italian Sports Guys. Bada boom.
Bada bing.
Lead the gun.
Take the cannolis you hit.
It's a weekly sports talk show with an Italian New Orleans twist, so grab a beer or a little red vino.
Some pizza pie and some pasta marinara you hear.
Throw on your favorite sports jersey.
And join us. Why don't you?
All right, Kyle, good to be back here at Studio 58.
Benvenuti, Craigie boy. Welcome to the friendly confines. Good to have you back.
Good to be here. It's been a little while, and we are sitting here on draft eve, so a lot of excitement, of course, in New Orleans and elsewhere. Kyle, looking at the draft, of course, we got the same head coach coming back. We got the same quarterback from last year coming off of rehab. But the big news in the draft, and I'll kind of set this up for you and get your thoughts. The Saints, of course, have made a trade with the Philadelphia Eagles, so they now have 2 number 1 picks. And the big speculation is, what is the strategy behind that? What do they plan to do that? Do they have a plan, or are they just loading up on draft picks based on the talent in the draft? My take on it is one of two things. Either they have a player that they met at a combine or something that they really covet. They really want to go after this specific guy, and they're getting enough ammunition to move up if they have to. Or they've got a position of need where they like a couple of guys, and they figure if you got 2 draft choices, if one guy goes, you still got the other draft choice to go to get the guy. What do you think?
I agree with that. I think if there's somebody that they really like and they're going to have a chance to grab them, they have the ammunition to do so immediately.
Yeah.
And if that person's not there, or he goes, or they don't, something changes between now and tomorrow night, they still have the ability to get 2 quality players. Yeah. And again, if you don't want to put the cart before the horse here, but if you're looking at positions that you really like, let's say it's wide receiver and offensive tackle, you do have a couple of options at both. So if one flips, and let's say you have this OT and this wide receiver, and one gets taken, you can kind of shift those 2 positions and still get guys who can contribute immediately, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you look at you mentioned some of the players, the positions of need, of course. Quarterback, you never know what's going to happen with Jameis, but he looks like he's rehabbing pretty well. But you never rule out a quarterback because long term you're going to need a solution there, right?
Sure.
Offensive tackle with Armstead going, that's obviously a need. And of course, you mentioned wide receiver, and again, Mike Thomas should be back healthy, but again, you could always use some additional weapons there.
Yeah, I mean, not much really to add to that. That's exactly what I think the mindset is. I think all the fans know it. This is a bona fide playoff roster far and away. Yeah. Just a few questions, and they were steamrolling at 5-2 last year with the win over the Bucks to add when the quarterback went down. Was he lighting it up? No. You'd like to think you're going to get more out of him there next year, another year in the system and whatnot. And if not, do you have a capable backup in Andy Dalton, who's at least been in the playoffs a few times? And let's see where Ian Book goes.
Yeah.
I don't know that they know exactly what they have in him yet, but I think the draft will tell you at least what they think they have in him or not. If they're trading up to get a quarterback, or they take a quarterback maybe in the 3rd or 4th round, even in the 2nd, that tells you that they might like him, but they might like him as a career backup.
Right.
That's what I think there.
Yeah, and you mentioned Dalton. I think it's a good move. Get a guy with some, a good amount of experience. You're not going to have the drastic drop off you had a year ago if something does happen with Jameis and re-injuring that hamstring.
That's huge. I mean,
ACL.
With the ACL, I think that's huge. To have a guy who's taken a lot of snaps in the NFL as a starter for a long time, and then recently when Dak went down, he had some pretty good games for the Cowboys. Some not so great, but. I think that was a real quality pickup as your backup quarterback.
You mentioned some of the positions of need, Kyle, and there's some names being thrown around. Chris Olave, the wide receiver from Ohio State, seems to be a name that gets out there. Penning, the big offensive tackle from Northern Iowa. We saw some mocks today with the kid from Utah, linebacker. So what do you think the Saints are thinking? What do you think of those picks that are kind of the consensus out there with the mock drafts? What is Kyle Cortello's mock draft?
I mean, I have a mock here. I got one all 7 rounds, Craig. That's how I roll. Look, it's like Christmas for football fans when the draft comes around. It's absolutely spectacular. Yeah. I think if let's say that they need a wide receiver, they need offensive tackle, and again, you take the best player available to a degree. I think they take Chris Olave at 16. That's what I have mocked right here. Yeah. There's an Ohio State wide receiver. Kid can flat out run. He's not just a speed guy. He runs very good routes. Not afraid to go over the middle. So he's a guy that I think that comes in and he's kind of NFL ready. I mean, receiver's a hard position to learn in this league right now. Used to be you could come in if you were big enough and fast enough, get on the outside and go and get it. Yeah. A little more complicated than that now, but I think Chris Olave is a guy that, is going to come in and be able to play. And I think that's who that's why I have them taken at 16. The guy playing opposite him at Ohio State, Garrett Wilson's fantastic, but I think he'll be going right there. As a backup to that position, if Olave happens to be going at 16 or 19, I'd have him taking Jameson Williamson out of Alabama. And this kid's tremendous talent. The only problem is he tore his ACL, and I believe semifinal game, so you won't see him, or maybe even a national championship game.
I think,
but so he wouldn't be ready to play anytime soon early on. So I got Chris Olave with the 16th pick. 3 picks later, the Saints pick again. I have him drafting the aforementioned Tyler Penny, and this is a big, tough, nasty offensive lineman out of University of Northern Iowa. He's got a great temperament. Unless you're playing against him, it's an awful temperament. Needs a little bit of work on his pass protection, I think, in terms of his footwork, but he's got everything you need to become a 10-year starter at either left tackle or right tackle. A possibility exists that they can move Ryan Ramczyk over to left tackle. This kid would certainly be a fantastic right tackle as well. Another name to consider there is a guy who may be more of a finished product now, so might be a little bit better off for you right away. But still, you got to bet on potential and what the guy's ceiling may be. Is from Central Michigan, Bernhard Raymond, and this is a guy he was born in Austria. Again, nasty, tough. He's about 6'5", 300 pounds. Penny's a little bit bigger than him, but either one of those to me, and you got yourself a player you can slot in one of those tackle spots for 8 to 10 years. So. Going past that, I got us in the second round with Matt Corral, the quarterback out of Ole Miss. I'm sure fans in this area are certainly familiar with him. A dynamic kid. I really like what he did under Lane Kiffin over there. He can really run. He can move around very well. He's an aggressive passer, and he makes a lot of big plays. And this is a guy, you talk about heart and soul. This is a guy that when a lot of other people were opting out for bowl games, he didn't have to play. Yeah. And he came in and played in the Sugar Bowl for the Ole Miss Rebels. Ended up getting hurt in that game, so he missed a lot of the postseason workouts and that sort of stuff. But he'll be ready come training camp time if he's not 100% already by now. Wasn't sure where to go there, but that's what I went. So round 3, I got a stake in a safety out of University of Cincinnati Bearcats, Brian Cook. They had an outstanding year. They were one of the Final Four teams, and they went to the college football playoff. More of a program guy kind of there, but they were loaded in that secondary. So the only question mark I have on this guy was he good because he was surrounded by 3 other tremendous players, or were they that good on defense because he was spearheading it from the deep end? The next pick I have in the 4th round, I have us taking a running back, Rashad White out of Arizona State, 6 foot, 212 pound playmaker, a lot of touchdowns, gets big yardage, he's got some shake and bake to him, and he's got some power. The only reason I think we're going to need a guy that can give us some real snaps there at that position is because we don't know what's going to happen with Kamara with the pending litigation over in Vegas with everything that happened at the Pro Bowl. Round 5, another name that people around here may be somewhat familiar with, a tight end, Grant Calcaterra. He's out of SMU, but he was a transfer for Auburn. He wore 85 for Auburn, had the bushy hair hanging out the back, very athletic. You like to see him be a little bit thicker, but not afraid to go over and make the tough catch. Had some highlight reel grabs in the corner of the end zone. A great red zone guy, in my opinion. Yeah. And then last, we talk about sleepers, and I got one of our sleepers I have us taking, one of my sleepers. Offensive lineman Zachary Thomas, another tackle. Teams will do that. They need a quarterback. They'll take one at one, and they'll grab one again down the road. And sometimes if your name's Gus Farad, you end up being a starter. Who knows? Zachary Thomas out of San Diego State. Played as a freshman and then came back for that super senior year. So really played 5 years and started for the last 3 for the Aztecs. Was on the Outland Trophy Award list. Was on one of the finalists there. I know he's on the Senior Bowl list. And this is a guy who I really, really like. Very sound player, won a lot of awards and played a lot of snaps, a lot of experience, and just a very productive program guy for the Aztecs. And so that's a guy you can bring in and it'll help add depth to your offensive line room. And hey, if, let's say you got Penny in there or Raymond, and one of these guys gets hurt, that's a guy I'm telling you I think has the mental capacity to come in and play right away. So
yeah, and I think you mentioned the first 2 picks taking of course the wide receiver and the offensive tackle. I think if the Saints could get those 2 guys, 2 guys at positions of need without making a reach, I think they would be happy to walk away from the draft, and it would make it worthwhile in trading for their pick for the Eagles. So I think that would be a good move strategically if they can pull that off for sure.
Yeah.
Looking at the overall draft, Kyle, there's certainly the talent at the top of the draft seems to be. You got edge rushers, you got Hutchinson and Thibodeau, you got some offensive linemen that are going to go high. You got this kid Ikwanu, and you got Neal from Alabama, you got Cross. The cornerback Stingley moving up, a lot of top 10 in the mock drafts with Darryl Stingley, the kid Gardner from Cincinnati, as you mentioned, a good season. What's really intriguing about this draft is typically this time of year, even if there's not a consensus, high 1 or 2 quarterback at the top, these guys start skyrocketing just because it's such an important position of need. I mean, it's so important to teams. And we just haven't really seen that skyrocket of these quarterbacks in this draft. You know, Malik Willis, athletically, is kind of an intriguing guy. This kid Desmond Ridder, you mentioned, had a good year for Cincinnati, but is it a system? Is it a quarterback?
Right.
The Corral kid you mentioned, I've seen him as high as the 32nd pick in the first round, 32nd overall. I've seen him in third round or whatever as well. And then Pickett of Pittsburgh, I thought might move up the draft, but he's still kind of hanging a lot of different, again, depending on the mock draft, as high as 6th I've seen on CBS, and some out of the first round. So we haven't really seen those guys skyrocketing to the top of the quarterback position.
100% right. What does that tell you? Right. None of them
are
making
wowing.
that impact. Nobody's wowing any of these scouts. None of these quarterbacks are. I'm not saying some of them won't be fantastic players in the NFL.
Yeah.
But, look, there were quarterbacks taken before Deshaun Watson, before Patrick Mahomes, right? And Patrick Mahomes, if you were building a franchise, you might take him first now.
Yeah.
So maybe some of that applies here, but, you look at a guy like Joe Burrow. I've heard people talk about Brian Pickett Kenny Pickett as a Joe Burrow type who had that last year that really made that giant jump, and then look what he became. But by now, everyone was on Joe Burrow's bandwagon. Everybody knew with what he did.
Right.
You still haven't seen all these teams fall in love with this guy.
Yeah, right.
With Kenny Pickett. So out of Pitt. So that's going to be a real deal. I'll tell you how you know he's really not the guy. If the Pittsburgh Steelers pass on him in the first round, because he's in their backyard.
Yeah.
They've spent a ton of time with him leading up to this draft. They've done dinners with him. They've done chalk talk sessions with him, some classroom work. So if they don't take him, you can kind of assume that either Pittsburgh scouts are really bad, and we know that's not the case because they're built through the draft, the history of their program, or this guy doesn't have it.
Yeah. Well, you're right. I mean, again, a lot of different...
Not like that.
A lot of different projections based on the mock drafts. Have some CBS Sports projecting him at 6th overall to the Panthers. If he drops beyond that, you're right. He made the NFL Network had him with Pittsburgh Steelers on a couple of their mock drafts too. So, but yeah, you're right. If he drops beyond that Pittsburgh pick, people are going to start saying if this team didn't jump on him, something's wrong here. Yeah.
They know him better than anybody, and they didn't like him, and they need a quarterback.
Yeah, but it really does give a lot of intrigue to the first round when you have no consensus on these quarterbacks and it could go any given point in time.
Yeah, you mentioned all the edge rushers too, Hutchinson and Kayvon Thibodeau. The new possible possible number one pick is the kid Taylor out of Georgia. He shot up because he is going from 10th, 11th. Now some are saying that Jacksonville's going to take him with the first overall pick. So we'll see. I still like Aiden Hutchinson. I remember Andre Bruce. Falcons took Andre Bruce. Oh, poor Falcons. With the number one overall pick because they thought he was built and had the skill set of LT, and he did. Just couldn't play football very well. Right. And Aiden Hutchinson's a hell of a very productive play in, play out, can play the run, play the pass, and play the rush equally well. So I think that's where I would go. But.
Yeah, Kyle, I'm going to ask you also, you mentioned one sleeper, so I'm going to ask you for some additional sleepers. And also, maybe one of the picks in the draft where that may change the complete, a pick that could be pivotal in terms of changing direction of where teams go or some kind of move like that.
I'll go with my sleeper, Zachary Thomas, we talked about from San Diego State. Another one is a local kid, actually, named Kyle Myers, played at Holy Cross. He signed with Florida State, I believe, when Taggart was the coach there, and played a lot as a freshman, started the next year, was very, very productive. I think he maybe got in a little bit of trouble. It wasn't anything major, not a giant red flag. Mm-hmm. And so I think he went to a JUCO and then came back, and Norvell had kind of had him penciled in to start, and then kind of all of a sudden they didn't start him or they didn't play him. Yeah. He transferred to Tulane, had a falling out there with some of the staff. Super high-end talent. Kid's 6'1". He ran a 4.37 at Texas A&M's Pro Day. Actually, Jimbo Fisher signed him, which is why he ended up at Texas A&M's Pro Day. So Jimbo Fisher signed him, had him for at least 2 years over there before he left to go to A&M, and thought enough of him as a player and a person to bring him back to A&M for their Pro Day.
Gotcha.
So, look, Florida State's been in turmoil for a few years since, but Jimbo Fisher, the guy who signed him, thought enough of him to bring him back. Right. So that tells me a lot there. But more than that, let's talk about what the kid can do. Had the fastest time out of all the DBs at Texas A&M's Pro Day, and he's got the height, got the size, and the skill set. So very intriguing player. I mean, he ended up not even getting drafted or a 7th round pick, but the kind of kid you take a flyer on if you're in a DB situation. Another player I really like. I thought he showed a ton of heart and made a lot of plays for LSU this year was defensive lineman Neil Farrell. Now, if you watch Farrell on the field this year and look at him opposed to the previous years, he had his best year as a Tiger in his last year, but he didn't look like he wasn't as big in the arms, maybe a little paunchy, and played his best without maybe being in the best physical shape.
Right.
You ask me, that's you get him in a program, in the NFL program, where there's no shortcuts. They make you're there, or you don't get paid. You don't get some of your bonuses. I think if he gets, they some say 6th, 7th round, I wouldn't let him go past the 5th if I'm picking, because I think he's a guy who has a tremendous, or the ceiling is still there for sure. He can get even better. And then another one is the running back, Kyron. I said Hamilton. It's not Hamilton. The Notre Dame running back, Kyron Williams. Played under Brian Kelly at Notre Dame, and I thought he was very productive. Played along split time with Logan Diggs, the kid from Rummel, for the Fighting Irish, and that's another guy that if he's lasting, rounds 5, 6, 7, and you're in a team like the Saints, your situation with the Saints, and you don't have a back,
right.
I think that's a kid you can take a flyer on. That's mature enough, talented enough, can catch the ball in the backfield, and can pick up the blitz, blocking as well as running. So
got it. Sounds good. All right, Kyle, again, I think we talked about the needs. I think you have to lean. You try to take best player available, but I certainly think you have to lean offensive weapons. You got to give your quarterback some help. We had a top 5 defense last year, which we've been striving for a number of years. So I think you got to flip the switch and go offense this year, whatever you decide to do.
I agree 100%. I think that's exactly what we need to look at is, that defense, when we needed to score, at times we couldn't. That's never been the case for 15 years, pretty much.
Yeah.
So I think we need to get some of that. I don't say get some of that back, but this Pete Carmichael offense needs to reestablish that after taking a year off from it. So
no doubt,
the player you asked about who could change the dynamic of the complexion of the entire draft early on, Notre Dame safety Kyle Hamilton. Some people say he won't make it past 7. Some people he won't be picked before 17 or 18. So another position the Saints have a possible need at too. So keep an eye on him. He's a center fielder that can come down and play strong in the box. The Saints love interchangeable safeties, Dennis Allen, where you're not giving away your look by having the tall, skinny, rangy center fielder out here and a strong safety up in the box,
Yeah, and I'll say the kid Willis, for the quarterback from Liberty, could be a game changer, because I think, people are going to be intrigued by his athleticism, and if somebody takes him higher than people anticipate, then do the other teams that need a quarterback start panicking a little bit? Does somebody make a trade for Baker Mayfield to get somebody in their shop? I don't know, but I think it could change the complexion a little bit if a quarterback that's in intrigue goes that high and shakes things up a little bit.
100% right. This is a kid who's really big and very athletic, with a great touch pass.
Yeah, right.
He's got a fastball, but he can throw a changeup too.
Yeah.
So another feast or famine kind of guy, Carson Strong, the quarterback out of Nevada. And another sleeper, Sam Howell, Carolina. North Carolina.
All right, folks, we'll be tomorrow night. A lot of excitement, of course, in Vegas. Moving on to the basketball, NBA, Pelicans. What a year it's been for the Pelicans, starting off at 1-12 and I believe 3-16.
Yeah.
Made it to 10 games below 500. Good enough to get them into the play-in tournament. And of course, they did play in. They won, made it through that gauntlet. They didn't. You can argue that the first game of this series with the Suns was kind of a throwaway, because they had been cross country and stuff trying to get to that play-in, maybe a little bit exhausted. But since then, they've accounted for themselves very well. 2-2, winning the 4th game in New Orleans, going on the road. It was going to be a tough game last night. You knew that, and we just didn't shoot the ball well, flat out. They were going to be, they got their butts whipped in Game 4, going to come back at home. You knew the Suns were going to be, excited about this one, and they knew the importance of a Game 5 in a 2-2 series. So tough loss from last night, but a good season and a lot to be proud of with this team.
And we ain't out yet.
Yeah, right.
We're not done yet. And I'll tell you this. First time I wore the gear in a long time.
Yeah, right.
Was when they started with the play-in games. They won me back as an organization. Not that they were sitting there sweating it out.
Right.
I wasn't up on a video board saying we need this guy back. But I really did. I'd kind of turned away from the whole thing for a little while, and I said, when they get better, I'm back. And they did. They got better, and I thought that they showed a tremendous amount of togetherness when they traded Josh Hart and who was the other player that was in that trade with him. When they traded those two guys and they went to the game that night to watch the Pels play before they left town in the C.J. McCollum trade, it told me a hell of a lot about Willie Green and what he's doing there. There's a guy you knew you kind of liked him already. We knew he was a player. He was a great locker room guy. Look, any guy that's going to count Chris Paul and Monty Williams as his closest friends, probably a pretty good dude.
Right, yeah.
Okay, as much as we act like we don't like Chris Paul, you know how we are, when you're playing against us. But that was a big buy-in for me. That was saying, you know what, this guy might be onto something special with what he's building.
Yeah.
You know, Van Gundy was a disaster.
Yeah.
Alvin Gentry was, whatever.
Yeah.
And he's a cute little coach to have to go 500 or worse. That's it. Look at his record. This guy's the real deal.
Yeah. Well, let me say I don't want to mention Willie Green too, because I think so much of coaching and management, and for that matter, if you're in the corporate world, is are they buying what you're selling? I mean, and when this team was 1-12 and 3-16, he just kept saying this is part of the process, and his team never folded. I mean, they always kept playing hard for them. That was the real key to me. They just continue to play hard and play through those kind of tough games. A lot of teams will throw in the towel and look for next season, where they're going to go next year, or whatever. But
start missing games.
Well, but
injuries.
It was just obvious early on that they had the right guy and just had to get the right pieces around him. You mentioned the McCollum trade was huge. It gives them two real playmakers. Ingram's been a stud in terms of scoring. Getting some contributions from rookies too, the young guys.
Look at the rookies on this team.
Yeah.
Herbert Jones has been fantastic.
Yeah.
He's not first or second team All NBA. It's only because he's a rookie.
Yeah.
Trey Murphy out of Virginia has come in huge in spots. A little bit of an up and down thing, but in a rookie, feast or famine's okay.
Right, sure.
He feasted at the right times.
Yeah.
Jose Alvarado.
Oh man, what a fun
What
guy.
a spark plug, fan favorite, off the bench, crowd juicer guy. His idol when he was at Georgia Tech was former ACC Wake Forest point guard named Chris Paul.
Yeah, right.
He broke the steals record in that conference, and all of that. So look at this team as a whole with what they're doing now. Of course, Brandon Ingram, McCollum, Valanciunas, freaking the rookies. Jackson Hayes in his second year, and second year, and Zion Williamson hasn't played a minute.
Yeah, right.
So you look at the future of it. Now I think that dynamic changes.
Yeah.
And but Brandon Ingram to me is the straw that stirs this drink. So I said the other night, I said he's an absolute poor man's Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's the poor man's Durant anymore.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, I just the level he's played offensively just tremendous. The consistency with which he makes very difficult shots look routine, those fallaways on the baseline from 20 feet out, that's tremendous. And again, two playmakers. I do think there's been too many easy baskets in the series, so I think one more really good defender or big guy. Of course, Zion's the big wild card. Hopefully he comes back next year. You keep thinking when you watch this team, boy, if Zion was in the mix with this crew. But I think it's the wait for next season to get him back.
I think it is too. But the question is, does it? The only question I have is, boy, they're rolling.
Yeah.
How much does this tinker with the chemistry?
Yeah, right.
Well, for a talent like that, you know what? You go find out. You put them on the floor.
Right.
I'll say this, too. The MO on this team seems to be right now, they come in, when they attack the basket, they don't start settling for jumpers like they did last night and start kind of, they have to go earn it. They have to play with a lot of grit.
Yeah.
And they do that there in every game. They've been in every game they've done that. But I think they fell behind last night, settling for jumpers, not banging on the boards enough. And it let the Suns pull out so much that they were playing catch-up the whole night.
Yeah.
And people think, when you're behind and playing catch-up, as long as you can strike at the end. That's partially true, but it's a lot of energy to catch up.
Yeah, right, yeah. They got to within 6 or 8 points a couple of times and just couldn't close the deal.
Yeah, and then, Chris Paul, he kicked our guy in the cannolis. And,
yeah.
That ticked me off a little bit. We got ourselves a series now.
Yeah, no doubt that this kid's getting under his skin.
My goodness.
Without question.
The fans got a chance for him.
It was too fun to see the opposing team boo a rookie like that.
Undrafted rookie.
Unbelievable, yeah.
And they had the guy in the background with the red beard. Get out of here, 15,
It tells you the impact he's had.
Right. So total spark plug. But it has been tremendous the way the city has finally remerged, not re-emerged, but remerged with this team.
Yeah.
Because they kind of lost us for a little bit.
Yeah, right.
For sure. So.
All right, folks. Kyle, you want to mention barging on the scene player this week?
I got the McDonough Marine Service barging onto the scene athlete of the week. This week's McDonough Marine barging onto the scene athlete of the week is Landon Madare of Belle Chase High School, the Belle Chase Fighting Cardinals. During the fall, he had placed in state for them in previous years, not this year. They have a tremendous cross-country program at Belle Chase. But they also, now it's track and field season where you're running the sprints and everything else. And yesterday at the Region 4 track meet at Hosmensa Stadium, They took first place, and he took first place in the 800 meters. And then he anchored their 4x800 meter relay team to a sizable win. Was able to kind of didn't have to worry about breaking a record because didn't need to push at the end because they had such a big lead. Tremendous program they have there. But Landon Madare is their bell cow in the 1800 and the 800 meter run. And this kid is going to run in college somewhere if he wants to. I can tell you that. Fine young man. You got to kind of know him a little bit and. Talked to him yesterday after his run. He said he feels good, but you can tell he's hungry and they want more. Yeah. And proud of him. He's a good kid. Landon Madale, Belle Chase High School, the Fighting Cardinals is the McDonough Marine Service. Barging onto the scene, athlete of the week.
Got it. Sounds good. And of course, we want to mention our other sponsors, Brian Scheckstein State Farm right there on Causeway Boulevard in Metairie, and Luke Eats.
Luke Eats, 7329, corner of Cone and Lower Line, Uptown. It's been a while. But fantastic, Craig. Open Tuesday through Sunday. Paninis, coffees, lunches, salads, everything you want. Open from the morning for breakfast and lunch 6 days a week.
And exciting time of year. We got baseball just kicked off. Of course, we got the draft. It'll move us into the OTAs. The schedules will be out in May 7th or so, I think. So we'll have an idea where the Saints are playing and when. And we got a London game this year, I believe. So
are you going? You gonna go?
We'll see.
When they play in the Coliseum in Rome, we play in Sicily.
There you go. But when we're on top of the draft, we'll have a post-draft show to give you a recap and assess the Saints' performance in the draft. We are
the Italian Sports Guy.
Bada boom,
bada bing.